All right. Hello, folks. It is that time again for our weekly, our weekly tarot stream. So last week we had gotten up to the fives in the minor arcana, and so we talked about all different kinds of conflict, and it was kind of heavy. It was a lot of heavy stuff. Hi, don't put me on pizza. Hello, welcome. And thank you so much, both for being here and for that reminder. I appreciate it immensely. So this week, we are moving on, quite literally, to the sixes, which are, kind of as a group, about a lot of different kinds of movement and progress. Obviously there's plenty of movement in a lot of different cards, both in the minor arcana and in the majors in the tarot, but the sixes really concentrate on movement and in particular forward movement, not just moving around or juggling in place, but forward momentum of different kinds. So let's jump right in, shall we? And see what we've got. Except maybe I'll adjust myself a little bit. Okay, there we go. I like that a little better. All right, so starting with the Six of Swords, and just as a reminder, swords tend to be about air, tend to be about our brains, our minds, our intellect, etc. Starting with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, here, this is about as literal as you can get for talking about movement. We are on a very literal journey, one side of the river or lake to the other side. So you've got the boatman or boat person and these two folks who are shrouded. Everyone's facing forward. We're looking at them from behind. So we're facing the direction of the journey, right? And when I was initially learning tarot, this card, one of the things that I was told, that I read about it, was that this card could tend to be about literal travel, literally going somewhere different, which seems indicated here, right? But in my experience, I feel, don't put me on pizza, what are the swords doing in the boat? I feel like they're largely decorative. Either that, or they almost form kind of a screen here. So the folks are viewing where they're going through the swords, which, now that I come to think about it, is kind of a nice metaphor for what this usually indicates to me in readings, which is movement more of the mind than the body. Going somewhere different might be indicated, but what's really important are the mental, maybe ideological, maybe creative shifts that come along with that movement. So all these ideas, these thoughts, these new structures are... Hey Matricula, hello, welcome, I'm glad you could make it. Are the kind of the screen or the film through which you're viewing this journey, this movement. So yeah, I tend to view this one as a movement of the mind, changing ideas, moving towards new ideas, towards, to go really geeky, towards strange new worlds, undiscovered countries, but not in the Shakespearean sense. We're not moving towards death here, but new territory, new mental territory, exploring new concepts, trying on new worldviews, etc. But moving forward from where you have been. Which, right, always with the geeky. In the Thoth deck, this gets even more systematic. I don't know if you can see the keyword here, but the keyword is science, which to me doesn't necessarily talk about science in the chemistry, biology, particular disciplines sense, but in the approach, a scientific approach, does it work? Is it repeatable? Right? Science, but with religious imagery, because Crowley, I don't know. But yeah, is it repeatable? Does it work? Is it, we have an idea, we're going to test it. We're going to keep testing it. And if it doesn't work, we're going to make a new idea or make a new theory and test that one. So a systematic moving forward. This looks to me like a very organic journey, right? You may not know where you're going, not a lot of high-tech stuff here. As Don't Put Me on Pizza pointed out, these swords are just kind of there. It's not entirely apparent how that all works yet. By contrast, yes, absolutely, there's something of that step back. I'm going to try science to this card. It's much more organized. I mean, you've got all the pinwheels in the background, for sure. But the swords themselves are evenly and deliberately spaced, slicing everything into equal portions. And it looks... So we've got Mercury right at the top there, and Mercury or Hermes is often associated with science, cleverness, alchemy, hermetic disciplines. Yes, because, so Don't Put Me on Pizza, because it's the suit of air, pinwheels are kind of Crowley's or Lady Frida Harris's, I don't know who made that call, their chosen background theme in there. And they occur in the suit in a way that I don't think has a parallel in the other suits. I'll have to pay attention to that. And as Don't Put Me on Pizza pointed out, we've got keyword science with a card that quite literally has religious imagery at its heart. So right here we've got a golden cross with a rose at the center. So the rosy cross, the Rosicrucian symbol. And as we discussed last week, there are whole layers and layers and layers of symbolism with this deck that I have vaguely read about but not delved into to the level that I could, simply because I don't tend to engage with it on that level. So I can't tell you everything about why we get why we get that here, why we get this kind of explicitly Christian, but mystical Christian symbol in the middle of this card. What I can say is that for me, the structure and arrangement of this card, go on, pizza. I am not worried. But for me, the structure and arrangement of this card always puts me in mind of proceeding toward the center, getting to the heart of the matter, moving toward the heart of whatever we're thinking about, experimenting with, etc. Yes. Yes, don't put me on pizza. This deck feels very up itself in terms of how dense the imagery and references. It's so true. It's so true. It does require a lot. Well, that eye roll was for the deck, not you, pizza. Yes, absolutely. So I will say that, yeah, like the Rider-Waite-Smith deck has people in it that are relatable and approachable if you're white and Western and hi Foxen and a Boxen, welcome. We are talking about the Six of Swords / Air in various tarot decks. So yeah, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, at least theoretically, has approachable people if you're white, if you're Western, if you're probably cisgendered. Cisgender, sorry. The thing I like about the Thoth deck is that there is a lot for me to play with. I like the colors. I like the complexity. I'm one of those people who really enjoys T.S. Eliot. So there's a part of me that loves the super dense symbolism, and someday I plan to read all about it. But it's really important to me that I be able to use this deck. If I'm going to use this deck, it's important to me that I be able to use it without expounding at length. In a reading, here is a little bit different. It's, more discussion, education oriented. But in a reading, it's important to me that I be able to use this without expounding at length about the significance of the particular angle, or that this wand is for this level of the Golden Dawn and blah, 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 blah. So it's important to me that I be able to use it on a more intuitive level, which is part of why I've worked hard at being able to see what I see in it, and not trying to rely so much on the depths of the symbolism, which is really interesting, but like you said, can make it real unapproachable real fast, for sure, pizza. Yeah. So, tangent, but definitely good observations, pizza, and extremely relevant and extremely valid. So, the wooden tarot, the Six of Plumes, which for folks who are, I love seeing the Wild Unknown deck. I love seeing readings with it, Foxen and a Boxen. But I don't know. It's not quite. I don't know. I love it. I love it on other people. I love it when other people read with it. And yeah, the humanoids can be distracting. But I don't know if you've seen the Wooden Tarot deck, but it's another one that doesn't have humanoids in it. Um, and its sword equivalent suit is plumes. So this is the 6 of plumes, which... Hi, Foxen. Okay. No worries. We are all weird here. I mean, I know you from Dryad Tea streams, so I love a lot of the same things Ruby loves. We're weird here. It's fine. So this harkens back pretty directly to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck with the boat and travel imagery. But the cool thing about the inflections here, to me, is that where the swords are out in front of us here, kind of preceding us, and therefore make me think about the new ideas, the new approaches, the new things. Right, Pizza. The feathers are all left behind, kind of trailing behind. Yeah. What do we need to leave? What are we sailing away from? What are the old ideas that don't serve us, that aren't relevant, that aren't what we want anymore? And I enjoy that the mallard here is just kind of doing its thing. Happy, apparently, not upset, not worried, not missing those 6 feathers. Didn't need them, didn't want them, maybe they were itchy. So this is, I like this interpretation. And finally, got the 6 of bells from the Numinous deck. And this, once more, harkens back to the Rider-Waite-Smith, but takes the humanoids out of it and makes clearer the... to me, this boat journey, this looks kind of chilly and damp and maybe fearful. Everyone's wrapped up and looks a little bit huddled and sad or anxious. But here, that is a bird. I think it's like a pizza. I think this is a carved bird, not a live bird, like a figurehead. And now I'm thinking about Good Ship Venus, and that's not relevant. But the figurehead here is a bird, long-beaked water bird. And it has a set of 3 wind chimes. So those are the bells. I know, one of these days, I'm sorry, Pizza, I know the camera isn't focusing terribly well. One of these days I will get a better camera for this, since I seem to be going on with it. But I appreciate your patience and bearing with me. But yeah, so these are the wind chimes or the bells, 3 on each side. So again, here, they're preceding us, but even more clearly, they're at the prow of the ship. They're guiding us. They're kind of sounding the way. And there's a little bit of also, they're not in the way. That's right, Pizza. And the little golden resonators, or resonances coming out from the bells, to me parallel the golden resonance from our destination over in the mountains. So to me, this card, this boat trip, feels more explicitly positive and exciting than this one, especially because we have the stormy sky opening up, rays of light piercing through, light on the water. This seems to indicate that new ideas, new movement towards new ways of thinking are really opening up and illuminating things for us. Feels very hopeful. Moving from uncertainty, moving from cloudy, stormy, to something brighter, clearer, and overall, this card makes my heart happy and cheerful. So, movement of the mind, moving towards new ideas, new ways of thinking, but different approaches. And Foxen and anyone else who may be new to this stream, please feel free to jump in with questions, comments, snarky remarks at any time. That is welcomed. So, moving on to the Pentacles. You are not snarky pizza. That's just the phrase I learned from someone way back in my childhood. Are there questions, comments, smart remarks? You are not that snarky. But snark is not unwelcome here. Well, Foxen, that sounds like a problem to be fixed, not having enough wine to snark. So, the Six of Pentacles. So we did movement of the brain, of the intellect, the mind, and true facts. I raise my sour peach beer to you. So moving from movement of the mind to movement of resources. Absolutely, pizza. Movement of material resources. So here we've got a wealthy merchant handing out, I always think of this as handing out alms to beggars, to the unfortunate, and like, I get, on the one hand, this card says, be generous, give of what you have. Where you have much, be sure to share it. Keep those resources moving. But, could he look more smug and condescending? Like, oh yes, I'm a great wealthy philanthropist and I'm giving to these poor, unfortunate souls. Well, pizza feels like pocket change he's handing out. You say, at the very least, it's pocket change to him. I don't know. I don't know how much money this is to be wealthy, but even if it's quite a lot, it's still pocket change to him, and he gets to feel super good about it. Foxen, right? There's this huge gulf of understanding. Hey, oh my apple pie, welcome. We're talking about the Six of Pentacles right now, and the jerk merchant who's giving but managing to do so in a really jerky manner. Yay! I'm so glad you have time. Yes, don't put me on pizza. This person deals daily in gold and platinum, and they're handing out copper. Yeah, and feeling really good about it. So, with this deck, I always have to think about it abstractly. Right? Very good pizza. Very good pizza, Foxen. Hey, Crafty, you made it. I'm so glad to see you. Welcome all. Foxen, do you stream? Crafty, if you could get some shout outs for Oh My Apple Pie and Foxen and Matricula. And yourself, please. And thank you. Yay! So moving along from smug merchant, smug and condescending merchant, to the Toth deck, where we have, so the keyword here, which you can't really see, one of these days, gadget, success is the keyword here. And certainly there's some amount of success pictured here, being successful enough to drop pocket change like it's nothing and still feel very high and mighty and secure. But here, again, things are arranged very deliberately. This particular take on the card, the design feels like it has a lot of resonance to it, and with the kind of concentric ridges and circles. Thank you so much, Crafty, for those shout outs. And so it puts me more in mind of the way that when we have success, when we're successful, when we have enough to give, those things ripple. When we're successful materially and secure enough to spend more at mom and pop stores rather than big box stores, or we're secure enough to give more to the causes we believe in, those things ripple. So it makes me think of that, of the ripples that happen when we have success and resources to share, as well as we've got the kind of rays of light here, the ways that shared resources can give light and give hope and make a brighter and better space for folks. I'm not sure that that's what Crowley intended, but as we established with Pizza's help earlier, we don't necessarily care. At least I don't necessarily care what Crowley intended, because that's what I think of here. So a little bit different. I hope you're cooking something delicious, Matricula, and you are welcome to lurk and cook. We are happy to have you. In the wooden tarot, the Six of Bones, we have a hand with 6 fingers. So this, unusual assets, yes. And yes, Crafty, it's kind of weird. But as before, with this suit in the wooden tarot deck, I really started getting a feeling for it when I started thinking, okay, what does this appendage or this bone do or relate to? And hands do work, hands give. Foxen, is that the hand of the man who killed Inigo Montoya's father? I am so glad that I am not the only one who thinks of that every fucking time this card comes up in a reading. Every time. All the time. Each and every... So, Don't Put Me on Pizza and The Princess Bride. One of the eventual protagonist-ish characters is on a quest for vengeance, to get revenge for his father, who was slain by a 6-fingered man. So, and he has a very pronounced line. And anyway, if you haven't seen The Princess Bride, you might want to do that. It's not beloved of everyone, but so a couple of things that this immediately says to me is our hands are, at least metaphorically, what we use to give, what we use to do work in the world that allows us to give to other people. Well, yes, crafty, but I don't want to make assumptions. And the sixth finger says to me that, symbolically says to me, giving out of abundance, giving when you have even more than you need. Really having a lot to work with in the area of giving. So, again, I don't know if that was what was intended, or if I'm running with it in a totally different direction, but that's what I think of. There's excess here with which we can do more than we might have otherwise been able to. And then in the numinous deck, we go back to human structures for giving, right? Explicitly. Because we've got this person who's taking advantage of the little free library, the 6 of Tomes. But as opposed to the smug merchant, the condescending merchant, who is so proud of himself for giving, we don't know who put this in place. Some kind soul who believes that everyone should have access to books and had some to spare or gathered some up from the community, put this in place so that everyone could have access to a good book. And the bargain here, because rather than being a one-way trade, it's right, Crafty, it is a more selfless act, but it's also an act that relies on the goodness and the engagement of the community to keep it going. This person can take the book and read it and bring it back, or read it and keep it if they decide they have to have it. But the responsible, the kind, the engaged thing to do is to bring back another book. Maybe one that they've read and are done with. Maybe one that wasn't for them, but is still in good condition. And so this talks about the two-way movement of resources. It reminds us to look for the structures, to look for systems that people have put in place. Book crossing? I feel like that's a reference I'm not getting, Pizza. But yes, it's a crossing and movement of books. So it reminds us to look for places where people are giving freely, and to be able to happily take advantage of that and engage with that, use those resources, while also reminding us to give back where we've benefited as much as we can, when we can. So it's a thing that some people do that involves leaving books in place for other people to find, with the idea that they'll do the same with it once they're done. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so more of a structured, maybe more of a structured single spot take on that idea, Pizza, but very much the same thing. And Crafty, I wish my doctor's office had a little free library. That would make me feel so much better. As it is, I just take my T.S. Eliot with me every time I go to the doctor. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Right. So, movement of ideas, movement of resources, charging forward to movement of willpower. So, the Six of Wands in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. This is super clearly a victory parade. Conquering hero, riding home from battle, laurel wreaths in place. The populace has come out to line the streets and give them a welcome parade. If there were a soundtrack for this, it would be the happy version of When Johnny Comes Marching Home. But a battle's been won. This team defeated that team. This team triumphed in whatever they were supposed to be doing. Their will triumphed over the other people's will. Victory was had. We can all be happy for a moment. This isn't permanent, right? This is a moment of victory. Victory in a stage or milestone, but a decisive victory. So that's a good question, Pizza. What is moving here? So to me, this is about the movement of willpower. Because when we go to battle, or when two sides go to war or fight in any context, there's the physical aspect, but there's also the I want things to be this way. My will is this. Versus, well, no, it's not going to be that way. It's going to be like this. And we fight, we fight, we fight. The victor is the one who gets to advance their will. The victor is the one who gets to move ahead with their changes, their transformation, their will for what the situation is going to look like. Exactly. Right. Thank you, Crafty. I framed it as a battle between two sides, but it could absolutely be the triumph of will over difficult circumstances, or even not terribly difficult circumstances, just life. Just life. This is, man, I killed that test. This is, dude, I aced that job interview and it's a good offer. This is, I got the part. This is all those kinds of, this is how I wanted it to be, and so it is. Yes, don't put me on pizza. Achievement unlocked. Absolutely. Yes, precisely. I wanted to do the thing, and I am doing the thing. Damn it. So, in the Thoth deck, we get the keyword victory on the Six of Wands. And we get Leo down here. So, the lion who will never be defeated and is clearly the prettiest and best kitty in the whole jungle and king, and you should just acknowledge his will right away and all be better that way. And Jupiter up here, who's, again, I'm not an astrologer, but from what I understand, Jupiter is the lord of success, astrologically, lord of success, joviality, joviality, celebration, and things going well. Administration of one's will as a king. That all goes with Jupiter's territory, so it makes sense that they'd be here. And flames. Right, Crafty. So what is with the flames? The suit of wands is associated with fire. So in the Toth deck, the wands cards almost always have something fiery going on with them, because so when I'm talking about this with clients, I tend to say that, you know, the wands as a suit are about our gut, about our willpower, transformation, the fire that drives us. Okay, so when we burn with the passion to make changes, when we burn with fire emotions pizza, when we burn with anger over injustice or less noble kinds of anger, when we burn with passion over a creative project or desire over any number of things, that's all wands territory. That's all fire in the kind of classical Western elemental system. If the suit of wands were a person, she would be a redhead. Quite likely pizza, yes. Yes. Or just a super badass bitch, and you do not want to get in her way. So yeah. And again, this is very structured. This is one of the less... I often don't find the wands in here super evocative. Wands is considered a masculine suit, crafty, but we are not bound by the binary conventions. So wands can be a redhead if she so chooses, or if they so choose. Right, so definitely emphasis here on victory, on this feels like the flames as they're arranged here do feel kind of like candles lit in celebration or in windows welcoming people home. But again, not super evocative to me. As we said before, all of these staves have different meanings in the Golden Dawn, and I don't know what they are. But that's okay. That's all right. So, in the Wooden Tarot, the Six of Stones, we've got, and stones are wands in this deck, we've got 5 crystals, 5 stones growing on this antler here. Don't put me on pizza, this does look like a crown. And the thing, this looks like a crown, but also the last big stone here is clearly supersedes, and to anthropomorphize it, has triumphed over all the others. So again, this feels like the kind of standing on top of the world for a moment. Oh yes, I did it. I did the thing. I have the crown. I'm standing on the pedestal. I'm getting the medal. I'm getting the curtain call. Whatever it is. But yeah. So very similar imagery with the crown and the primacy of one over others. So again, both this one and the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, to me, do kind of emphasize the I won so someone else lost feeling of victory. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? As Crafty said, it might be your own will against the world. It doesn't have to be competitive. But these two look a little bit more competitive, implying I'm higher so someone else is lower, or I won, someone else lost. By contrast, the wonderful, kind, encouraging, numinous tarot deck goes with this gorgeous celebratory cake, which indicates that we could be celebrating anything from a birthday where everyone, yep, exactly, pizza, triumph over the struggles of life for another year, and everyone gets one, right? Everyone has a birthday. Everyone has, I mean, some people's birthdays really suck for them, and that's not awesome. But in theory, everyone has a special day. But it could also be you got that dissertation written, you defended it, you got that job, woo, we wanted to celebrate you and your victory. You made it happen. Yeah. And this feels communal. This feels like a victory that other people are supporting you in, rather than competitive. There may still be competitive elements to it. I mean, if you got the job, that means someone else didn't. But it feels like the emphasis here is on a supportive community who wants to get together and eat cake with you, right? Who cares about you enough to put out flowers and want you to know that you deserve something beautiful because you've worked your ass off and you did the thing. So, as usual, I really like this interpretation. Right, Matricula. I like that one too. I like it a lot. So, I like that. Don't put me on pizza. The struggles of life will be baked, and then there will be cake. And the cake had better not be a lie. Or left out in the rain. Then I might cry. So moving on to the cups. 6 of Cups. Thank you, Foxen. Thank you for going with me there. Also, I'm sorry about that other earworm. Anyway, so moving from movement of the will I'm sorry, pizza. It's a reference to the cake left out in the rain is a reference to a really terrible song called MacArthur Park. And I suggest for your own happiness and sanity and peace of mind, you don't go listen to it. But that's what it's from. Yeah, exactly, Foxen. Thank you. So, moving from vanquished struggles, as Crafty says, or the movement of willpower, we get to the movement of the heart, the movement of emotion, and the 6 of Cups. So here, we've got what, honestly, to me, the longest time, looks like an overgrown David the Gnome handing a flower in a chalice to a smaller gnome child. But it's probably not David the Gnome. It's probably just a medieval Western person. But it is cute. It is cute. And one of the things that I got taught early on and that stayed with me about this card, even though I didn't fully put it together until later, is that this card can be about nostalgia. So one of the ways to see this is about when you're in this person's position and you're giving a flower, you're giving something beautiful to someone younger. By interacting with that, by giving and supporting a child, You're remembering and interacting with your own happiness and innocence of childhood. You're engaging with your nostalgia. You're helping to create, hopefully, that same innocence and happiness that one day that child will look back on. So you're passing along the love, the support, the beauty that you were gifted. Now, of course, not everyone had super happy childhoods to be nostalgic about, right? Not everyone had loving families and mentors carefully passing down to them everything that they'd acquired and had for themselves. But that kind of movement of emotion across time, and at its best, that warmth that it can bring us, is a lot of what this card is about. And for me, that gets expounded upon in some of the other cards. So I'm going to leave it there for now. In the Thoth deck, the keyword for this card is pleasure. Now, Crowley being Crowley, usually if I see pleasure in association with anything Crowley, I think sex. I think he's talking about hedonism. He's talking about sexual pleasure. And I don't think that's the case here. Surprisingly. You're about to say masturbation. Well, I would expect that more in the Wands, but it's not out of the question. But yeah, a couple of things that I notice here that make me think it's not about sexual pleasure is that each of these cups has its own flower, right? And while each of them are being poured into, they're not overflowing, as we've seen some other cups do. So to me, that feels like a more stable kind of pleasure. But again, there's that transfer from one to another, or transfer from one place, time, person to someone else. So again, that sense of lineage, of movement, of emotional resources, of nostalgia, and the pleasure that comes with engaging with that. The pleasure that comes with looking back on what has been. The pleasure that comes with, maybe because it is Crowley, remembering in a moment of flirting how it felt to be a blushing teenager, having our first crush, or our first kiss, or our first whatever. But also feeling familial connections in caring for nieces and nephews, remembering how we were cared for. Hopefully. So this looks to me like tending. There's individual attention happening here, and again, only enough. It's not overflowing, it's not wild. It's well organized, but it's not wild. So with the wooden tarot deck, for once I actually kind of had a little bit of a revelation with this card when I really started looking at it. So there's only one bloom, right? This is the 6 of blooms, but there's 6 little eyeball stamen. The little stamen up in here all end, and again, sorry for my camera, all end in little stamens, and also 6 petals. Exactly right, pizza. They all end in little eyeballs. So there's a sense of watchfulness, of noticing here. But also, this flower isn't just alone, nor is it visibly rooted. We get to see the seed from which this flower sprang. So that indicates to us that where we are now, with all of our resources and all of our knowledge, this reminds us to look at where we're rooted, to look at where we came from, and what connects us back there. To me, this is much less of a necessarily warm fuzzy card, because these both look and feel pretty warm and fuzzy. And yeah, crafty it is, but and more of a value neutral. Where do we come from, and what still connects us there? Is it good? Is it bad? This is a pretty thin stem for this big old flower. I would be worried about stability. I would be worried about, falling over and not being able to sustain itself. I would want a thicker stem, a stronger connection, if I were that flower. So it asks some good questions around what are the emotional connections that connect us to our roots, that bind us, that are still there. Crafty, you often feel called out by these cards. Do you mean just the wooden tarot decks, or the cards I use and talk about in general? Either's fine. I'm just curious. So the wooden tarot in particular, that's interesting. They do have usually very different flavors and inflections that might get more at you than some of the others. So in the Numinous deck, as usual, we get a very clear and accessible picture of what this is about for the creator. Instead of being kind of a vague interaction here, it's very clear here that this card, yes, pizza, focusing on flavors of home. Where do I come from? What's in my past? Who came before me? Who? From a distance that looked like cooking. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, and still, I mean, there is kind of a lot of flavor here. I thought you meant figuratively, and I would run with that. Because there's quite a lot of what of this has this person gotten directly from their ancestor? What of this sits well? Yeah, crafty. It does kind of look like a scent memory, with all the vials, all the bottles here, all the little trailing bits. And it talks very clearly. We've got a shrine here. This isn't just a random thing. This is part of this person's practice. They're cultivating connections to their roots, their lineage, their ancestors through ancestor practice. And we can do that a lot of ways, right? It doesn't have to be a witchy thing, but they're cultivating those connections. They're taking time to remember. And it could still be cooking. It could be absolutely pizza. Maybe it's a spice bottle or an flavored oil bottle or something. I think this is important. One of my clients the other day got this card and said, he looks scared. This person looks scared of this. And so, while most of the time when this card comes up upright, it's positive, again, I think it's important to emphasize that not all of our roots are comfortable. Not all of our stems and lineages are as supportive as they needed to be. And especially, and even if they are supportive, it can still be hard to show our full selves, to absolutely, especially in the context of any reading. Don't put me on pizza. Absolutely trust your first impressions of a card. You may want to be open to additional or alternate interpretations, because sometimes our anxieties can yell real loudly, but absolutely trust and hold on to that first impression as well. So it's important to know that sometimes looking at our roots, looking at our support systems, looking at our lineage means dealing with uncomfortable stuff. It means if you're that kind of person, saying to your ancestors, this shit wasn't okay. This was not all right. Here's what I'm still healing from. I need you to know that. I need you to know what you did that hurt me. And that's okay. It's okay to do that. It's okay for your lineage, your ancestors, your support systems not to be perfect. It's okay to have issues there. It's okay to need to draw boundaries there. But part of looking at the movement of heart, emotional energy across time and space is also being aware of what have we inherited. Because if we're not aware of what we've inherited, of what we've gained, happily or unhappily, from those who came before us, we can't decide what to keep and what to work on letting go of. Yeah, crafty. It is complicated. It's very complicated. Especially if, there are tons of mitigating factors and circumstances that can complicate it even further. So that's tough too. But yeah. So those are the 6s. Those are our cards for this week. Yes, don't put me on pizza. Those who ignore the past are damned to repeat it. I've also heard it said that, your trauma will keep acting through you until you recognize it and work on it. And one of my favorite stories, in both a literature and for my own purposes, since in some tellings of the quest for the Holy Grail, the key moment in the quest is not the finding or the seeing of the Grail, but the asking the right question about the Grail King's wound. So having someone see the wound, name the wound, and ask how it can be healed, that's the first step to putting everything to rights, to saving the wasteland. And that's not an unproblematic story, and it's not an unproblematic version of that story, but I love it. So that is about all I had for tonight. And I am a slacker who has not scheduled my stuff for next week. But I do plan to do a story stream next week and tarot stream before I leave for Maine. So I hope to see y'all then. I will try and post my stream schedule. Crafty, yeah, Arthurian Legends were a large part of my undergrad and grad school work. Thank you for stopping by, Foxen. It was really lovely to see you here. I am going to Maine. I have a friend up there. I'm going to go visit her for a while. So, and if I'm one of the social justice bards, I think we may have some new folks in here. And if you want to come hang out in the Discord, I have my own little mini channel in there. And I post the stream schedule there too. You can ask questions there if there's anything you heard tonight that you wanted more elaboration on. I will be in Portland, Crafty. So, full of delicious poutine and donuts and more ice cream than I would have believed that far north. So, yes. Haha. Well, you'll have to come back next week and see what the theme of the sevens are, pizza. Clearly. So, let's see if there's anyone on right now. We could go see. Let's see. Does anyone have suggestions for someone we could go over to, go host? Rehaw is on, but they're streaming games. I don't want to go for games. Oh, you have a lot of family in Maine. You're going there next summer for a reunion. That sounds fun. That's delightful. Maine is a pretty cool place to be in the summer. It's not as hot as down here. So, alright. Well, I am not seeing anything that super excites me for going to host or raid, so I think I'm just going to sign off. Thank you so much to everyone who was here. Thank you, Crafty, for giving shout outs. Thank you to all the folks who asked questions and chatted and participated, and you're all excellent. You make this a lot of fun to do, and I will hope to see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and be well.